Senator, I just want to get right to it. The Biden administration has not given internet access to the protesters, the freedom fighters on the island. We know that would help them continue their fight for liberation. At this point, is it obvious to you that he has no intention of doing that? Why hasn't it happened yet?
This is not a priority for the Biden White House, and there's two reasons for it. One is because there are people in the State Department and others who are arguing, look, let's not have any instability in Cuba right now. We don't need that regime to fall because we don't want another crisis to deal with. That's like the best case. At worst is you have people that are flat out sympathizers of elements of that regime. We know, I mean, we're members of Congress that for years have traveled to Havana, met with regime officials, groveled with them. They've got people in the White House, at the National Security Council, and at the State Department, in the State Department, who are some of the biggest proponents of engagement with the regime. They were the biggest supporters, and some helped craft the Obama deal with the Cuban regime. And then you've got people in the base of the Democratic Party. They're flat out Marxists. I mean, there are Marxists in the Democratic base in terms of, you know, the people that knock on doors, the people that raise a lot of that soft, small dollar donors and so forth. So, I mean, that creates a huge division for them internally. So this is just not they want this thing to go away, but it's not going to go away, and we're not going to let it go away.
So are you saying that you don't expect to get this meeting because they do see a positive? Getting communism out of Cuba would actually help us in Venezuela, help us in Nicaragua, help us in Bolivia. Because without Cuba, that doctrine doesn't spread. Don't they see the plus side of the people having a say in their government in Cuba?
Well, that's what we hope to talk to them about. Look, I don't know if we're going to get that meeting. Look, it's the president. I know he's got a busy schedule and so forth, but I think this is an important issue. If this is a priority, you make time, you figure out a way to have a meeting like that. We've had no engagement with them on. And look, if there's anything that should be bipartisan, it's foreign policy. And something like this, I mean, taking on Marxism, socialism, and anti-American dictatorship 90 miles from our shores, that should be bipartisan. But right now it's not. I hope that can change.
Yep. You've been busy. You wrote an op-ed that is posted right now on FoxNews.com. The headline is, "We must stop Silicon Valley Democrat collusion before conservatives are silenced for good." You talk about how, you know, so many people talk about big tech and how they influence everybody's everyday life, but you say ultimately the quest of the administration to regulate big tech has to do with censoring its critics.
Yeah, so when you see them rail against big tech, what they're railing against is that big tech will not silence certain voices and certain opinions. That's what they're talking about. And look, these are private businesses, but never in the history of our country have we had such a small number of companies, of individuals, unelected, unaccountable, with no due process, making such decisions about who has access to the public square. And so I'm filing a bill that basically requires big tech companies to disclose anytime a government anywhere in the world, including here in America, asks them or pressures them to take down content. They need to disclose that.
Senator, I love your idea, but wouldn't it just be better to break them up? I mean, at this point, it's competition. Competition is what we need. And I know there's a lot of libertarians on the Republican side and free marketers who are like, oh, we can't tell these private business what to do. But they are monopolies, and they are controlling the public square.
Yeah, and we should take antitrust investigations into them very seriously. It really comes down to 5 or 6 companies. You know, if these 5 or 6 companies, if Google and Apple and Facebook and Twitter all get together and decide we're going to shut somebody down, they can wipe you out. They can deny you access to the internet. They can deny you access to the the most prevalent social media sites in the world. And then you add to that the growing one, TikTok, which is controlled by ByteDance, which is owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese company that, by the way, was taking down anti-Cuba regime videos at an amazing clip because they're a communist government over there. So it's a very concerning thing. They are monopolies, but it's not just an economic monopoly. It is a cultural, social, political monopoly.
And they're coordinating with the White House.
And you see that Anthony Fauci working with Zuckerberg, no question. Remember, he was against the lab leak theory. Now it's so overwhelming. That was once banned. Now it's basically conventional thought. Eric Swalwell, you pointed out in your column, was saying don't wear a mask, and that was bolstered. So if you're a Democrat, you get preferential treatment. And if we don't stop it now, the theme is you'll never have a say in social media again.
Yeah, that's the key here. And so that you're pointing to examples of things that were once would have gotten you taken down, but now they're acceptable. And so are you going to go back, and how are people going to get back their reputation? And more importantly, you can't go back in time. So this power to silence information, this power to silence voices because you don't agree with their political narrative. Look, here's what free speech means. Free speech means people have the right to say things that are offensive, and they have the right to say things that are wrong, and they have the right to say things that are crazy. You can't incite violence, but the other things. By the way, the Cuban regime was inciting violence. They didn't take down the fake president of Cuba.
No kidding. If you'd like to read his op-ed, you could Google it, but then again, just go to foxnews.com. Easier to find.
All right.
Senator,
Thanks, Senator.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.